delightful, and oh so soothing. It's Sacramento Smooth Jazz.
Welcome back to Sacramento Smooth Jazz. As we discussed, I have Mr. Antoine Knight, saxophonist extraordinaire, and we've been playing his music, and him and I have been talking it up last few months. So, we have some great things that we're going to be talking about, and I wanted to share it with you. Antoine, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing just fine, man. Thank you for having me.
Thrilled to have you. I got a lot of questions, and some I know the answers to.
Uh-oh.
Some I know the answers to, but I want to talk about some things that's not on the bio on your website. I want to talk about the new music that's coming out and that you've given us the privilege of playing for several weeks prior to it being released on the radio nationwide. So thank you for that. But man, what's going on, man? I know you're from Pensacola, Florida. What brought you to Atlanta? What's going on?
Well, I used to visit Atlanta when I was in college at Florida A&M, and I like the atmosphere, and I like, affluent Blacks that was really progressing and thriving. And if you look at it on a wider scope, Atlanta is like the Mecca, especially for Black Americans, for opportunities. And I wanted to be a part of that. And that's what got me to Atlanta.
Speaking of Florida A&M, now you were in the military there as well. Talk to me about that.
Well, I was a distinguished military graduate from Florida A&M and became a major in the United States Army till I did Signal Corps, and then I did infantry and jumped out of planes and Bradley Commander, fought along tanks. And it was quite an experience, and I came out as an XO, a battalion XO of a company. And I must say it was quite an experience, being in the military, wearing the uniform. And I've been out about 10 years now, and I do miss it. I do miss it. Wow.
Jumping out of airplanes or just the military by itself? or both?
All of it.
Yeah.
Now, jumping out of planes and stuff, I was a little younger at the time, so I was a lot more daring. Right now, it's like, ooh, I don't think I would do that. But it was quite an experience and quite an honor, to accomplish what I did accomplish, when in the military.
Well, myself as well as our listeners, we want to thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
For your distinguished career. But, there's so much I want to talk about. I didn't want to go through the long introduction. I want to get right into the meat and potatoes. Okay. You have performed on stage with a lot of notable musicians. You've recorded in the studio with also a number of notable musicians. But let's talk about your time, overseas, where you were the BB King All-Star Band. Being a member there, talk to me about that.
Well, it started, my godson, he's a bass player. His name is Chris Snowden. He plays for Eric Essex. He plays for Lynn Roundtree. He plays for MC Light and Ruben Studdard. He plays for everybody. He was on tour, and he told me, he said, they need a saxophonist for another Caribbean tour. They want you to send in a video. So I sent in the video, and I said, what song they want me to play? All you need to do is play Freeway by Aretha Franklin and Sentimental Mood. So I played it and all that, sent it to Memphis. They called me back immediately and say, when can you come to Memphis? The rest is history. They sent me to the Caribbean. Then I went to Europe twice, and then Australia. That was a mind-blowing experience. Italy. And then on the last tour from Italy and Greece and Spain and Barcelona, I went to Asia. Now that was an experience from Singapore to Vietnam to Hong Kong, Tokyo, the Philippines, you name it. So in that whole experience, I really got a perspective of myself, and I got a perspective of my life in the United States. I don't see the United States the way I used to before I went overseas. And it takes someone who's actually been overseas and spent some time to really understand what I'm talking about. There are some differences, and I appreciate a whole lot more things now being in the States, and a lot of things that I used to take for granted, I don't. But all that experience from being a tenor saxophonist for the BB King's band on a cruise ship, it really made me a little more wiser and to really appreciate things a lot more.
That's perhaps some good insight for aspiring musicians too, who are coming up, to give them perspective.
It was. It gave me a lot of perspective because at the end of the show, I used to always go to the stern of the ship. That's the back of the ship. And you can see the huge rudders as they portray water that extends for miles. And in my mind, you know, it's like, man, look how far I've come. And then I would go to the bow and it'll show me where I'm going. And those were like the two most meditated things that I used to do when I was on the cruise ship, because life is like where you've been and where you're going. That was perspective that I have learned for myself playing musically with the BB Kings. And I really have adopted that in my life right now.
That's nice. You know, it sounds as if you definitely have gained wisdom and insight that you can pass along to others, not just musicians, but just individuals as a whole. Mm-hmm. So life experience definitely has given you some wisdom indeed. You know, ladies and gentlemen, if you just tuned in, we're talking with Antoine Knight, saxophonist, recording artist. He's done some great things. In fact, he's going to talk to us about how he has opened up for a number of individuals like Gerald Albright, Norman Brown, Boney James, Althea Renee, Steve Oliver. You know, what was that like, Antoine?
I opened for Gerald Albright and Norman Brown. He introduced me to Norman Brown. Gerald was so nice to me. He said, hey, you know, I heard your show. We about to go up, but, you know, you sounded great. He walked up and, have you met Norman Brown? That was mind blowing. So me and Gerald, we still chat. Althea Renee, I met her in Atlanta, and then I met her again in Detroit because that's her hometown. And she invited me up on stage at Baker's. And based on the relationships, she agreed to record a song that was written for Najee to do. And Najee said, look, man, I'm in this contract with the record label. They not going to let me do it. Have you thought about Althea Renee? And I said, well, she was in my spirit to do it if you couldn't do it. And it worked out. And she played on it. And I had the pleasures of opening for her twice on two shows, the Gulf Coast Jazz Fest and another festival that was going on in Pensacola a few years back. That's how I got connected with her. And you mentioned somebody else. It's like there's right. A lot of people that I've played for.
Boney James, for. Steve Oliver.
Yeah, Steve Oliver, Boney James. Boney James is the most, I opened for Boney, the most nice, humble, laid-back guy. I even got a picture with us. You know, he really talked to me. He really reaches out to me on Instagram and all that. And he's the most nice, humble guy that, you know, you'd ever want to meet. But all of this to say, man, I have to stress that it's just relationships. You got to establish those relationships. It's not all predicated on how good you are, how talented you are. It's all about relationships and being humble. Now, my mother told me this years ago as a professional musician. She said, your humbleness is going to take you farther than your talent would ever imagine. She was right.
It's wisdom right there. Wisdom 101 right there, folks. That's good.
Yeah. So, you know, with that, you know, am I perfect? Of course I'm not perfect, but, you know, I am always that type of guy that understands relationships. And it's just given me favor to where I had the pleasures of recording with such, you know, established and such renowned musicians, you know, on stage or in recordings.
Your experience with opening up for these individuals, being on stage with them as well, you know, recording with them, you definitely have taken your note and applied it. But Antoine, I have to know, I want our listeners to know, you were in a movie. Can you give me a little, you know, give our listeners a little taste of what's going on? You're an actor now? What's going on?
What happened was I have a friend of mine named Reuben Baker. He was in a series called Sex and Sinners, something like that. It was a sequence. And he sent me a call and said, Antoine, they doing the Respect movie. And I think you fit the profile. They wanted real professional horn players. Because in the movie, you actually are going to be playing what is really going on. They want real professionals. So they looked at me, I fit the profile, and I did a 2-day shoot with Jennifer Hudson. And on one of the sets, we were on break, and she came over And she had a conversation with us, and she spoke to me. She was really very sweet, just nice and humble. And it was called Respect, yes. And it was an eye opener for me because not only that, I know Aretha Franklin's music like the back of my hand. I know all the horn parts. I know the arrangements. And when they gave me the arrangements to do, the movie, it was like a perfect fit. And, Jennifer was really nice. You talking about someone that can sing. I mean, it's saying like Aretha, you just thought Aretha was in the room. And it was a great experience, meeting her, met, Marlon Williams and, the couple of the cast members that was in the movie. It was quite an experience. I had a really good time on the set.
You have new music that's coming out, and I have been blessed by you by having access to this music in the last couple of months, and you've been telling me I can't play it on the radio until August. It's actually coming out August 22nd, officially nationwide on the radio, but you've given me the expressed permission to go ahead and play it several weeks before. And basically, Infatuation, which is the title of your new single. In fact, looking at the materials in which has been released, that you released to me, it says here, Antoine Knight is back with another single following the success of his single, Something About You, which was picked up by 9 Billboard stations. And it goes on to say his newest sophomore campaign, Infatuation, features JJ Sanseverino on guitar. I want to discuss for a moment how that came to be, this track with JJ Sanseverino. How did that come to be?
I went to a concert in Atlanta. It's called the South City Jazz Series. It's at a very nice spot called St. James Live. Well, the artist that night was JJ Sanseverino. And I said, okay, well, let me go check him out. Loved his show. And then after, I told him about my product, Something About You. And it was just a genuine spirit to where we just really connected. And when I bought his CD, instead of signing it, he wrote his number down. He said, call me. I would love to see what you're working on, and I'll be glad to be a part of it. And the song from my producer, Jeff Kennedy, said, hey, man, I got this track. Tell me what you can do with this. Took the track, and then when I recorded it, I sent it to JJ. JJ loved it. He said, I'm on this. And sent it back. And, Jeff Kennedy did the rest as far as mastering the product. And it was just magic how it all came about.
I'm grateful that you've allowed me to play this for the last couple of weeks. It's a wonderful track.
Atlanta has not heard it yet.
Your hometown has not heard this yet.
My hometown has not heard it yet. No.
Oh my God.
No, they haven't. Now they wanted to, but I didn't want to be to the point to where it released too early and people are trying to look for it and they can't buy it. So that was the only reason to that, because on the initial release, that's when it'd be eligible for online purchases. That was the only reason that I was doing. And plus, with my promoter, Jason Goroff, he said, look, you want the spins to count when the national release date hits, because that's when it really tracks on the Billboard. So that was the reason behind that. You're the first.
Well, I'm definitely grateful that you have allowed me to share this on Sacramento Smooth Jazz, and our listeners are grateful, no doubt. But as you said in the beginning of the conversation, it's about relationships. How can people reach out to you online? You're on social media, right? How can they reach you?
Real easy. Just my name, AntoineKnightMusic.com. That's my website. On the IG platform, it is Antoine_Knight. And of course, on Facebook, you can always reach me on Antoine Knight or Antoine Knight with the Roman numeral 2. I have 2 Facebook pages that I maintain and manage.
I am beyond grateful for you taking time to hang out for a few minutes today to give us insight and understanding about who you are as a musician and as a person. So everyone, without further delay, you're going to experience right now the world premiere of Antoine Knight's newest track entitled Infatuation, featuring guitarist JJ Sanseverino, right here on Sacramento Smooth Jazz.
Thanks for listening to Sacramento Smooth Jazz. To continue listening to Smooth Jazz 24/7, follow Sac Smooth Jazz on social media and listen by going to sacsmoothjazz.fm.